Continuing with our travel through grammar a little bit at a time, I want to talk today about how to form and how to use verbs. And I hope that for many, if not most of you, this will really be more of a review than anything new. So there are a few technical terms that I think that you do need to know in order to have a better understanding of verb construction and make sure you're using the correct verbs. The first term is principal parts. When we talk about the principal parts of the verb, if you think about looking up a word in the dictionary, typically you'll see, first of all, the present tense form of the word. Then you will see the past form of the word. And then you will see another word which we call the past participle of the verb. And so if you've ever wondered why there are all those entries in the dictionary, that is why, so that you can form the different parts. But you have to know how to mix together the proper ingredients to get the correct tense. So principal parts are four. Okay, we have the present principal part. Now, we're not talking about tenses yet. We're talking about principal parts, which are used to form tenses. So there's some overlapping of terms, but we have the present principal part, which is the same as the present form of the verb. So, for example, the verb study. The present principal part is study. It is also sometimes referred to as the infinitive form because it is the form if you put the preposition to in front of it, to study, to act, to play, to work. Okay, those are infinitive forms using to plus the present principal part. Then you have the past principal part, which is formed by adding typically ed to the end of the present. If the present tense already ends in E, of course, you only add the D. That is for regular verbs. So here we have another term that you really kind of need to know, and that is regular and irregular. And regular, obviously, is the usual, ordinary, plain vanilla form, and irregular is a verb that does not follow the rules. We could call it a bad verb for not following the rules, but instead we call it an irregular verb. And we have a large number of them in the English language. If you wonder why we have such a large number of irregular verbs, again, it's because we have such a mongrel language that draws in so many different influences from other languages and other lands. So regular follows the rule, irregular, there's no rule. You just have to know it. And if you think about it, this is why you might hear, if you have a younger sibling or a younger cousin or nephew or niece, you might hear a toddler say, I rided my bike. And of course you have to correct them and say, no, you mean I rode my bike. But what's interesting here is that the toddler says, I rided my bike because he's mastered a rule of grammar. Add D to the end to get the past tense. But the toddler is not yet sophisticated enough in language use to recognize that the verb ride is an irregular verb. So the present is ride, the past is rode. It's not logical. Don't try to think of a reason for it. It just is what it is, as they say. So you have regular verbs are verbs like play, study. Study is regular even though it ends in a Y. We know we change the Y to I and then add the ED. Irregular verbs are verbs that sometimes fall into a pattern, like the verb sing. If it were regular, the past would be singed. But we know it's not regular. How do we know? We just know. We've been listening to it hopefully correctly. If you haven't been hearing it correctly, you may not say it correctly typically in your speech. What I encourage people to do, especially if they have these verb problems, is to get a list of irregular verbs. And the list will give you usually 3 columns, the present, the past and the past participle. And you can kind of go down and test your knowledge on each of the irregular verbs. There are typically maybe 100 that are listed in textbooks. And put your hand over over the second column, and take the present tense and say, today I sing. Okay? Then yesterday I, and without looking at what it says in the second column, see if you get it right. Sang. Yesterday I sang. And then tomorrow I'm sorry, or for the past month, I have sung. Okay? Now, that is, the word sung is the past participle, and that is the third principal part. Typically, the past participle is the same as the past, except for irregular verbs. I hope that's not too confusing. I see some eyes glazing over already. Let me just say that again. The past principal part and the past participle are usually the same. When they're not the same, it's an irregular verb. Unfortunately, those are some of the most common verbs are irregular. So if it's not ed, then the dictionary has to tell you what it is. You might have to look it up in the dictionary or in a book. So we know it's sing, sang, sung. Today I sing, yesterday I sang. I have sung. The past participle is the principal part that is used with helping verbs like have and had to form different tenses. Okay? And now the most complicated verb in the English language is, of course, the most common verb, which is the verb to be. Here the infinitive to be is not even really is not the present, because we don't say I be in standard English. So it's the verb be is very different. So also the only one that changes according to the person and number in the past tense. So we have the present, the past, and the past participle. Okay, present and the past, I'm sure you have no problems with. The past participle is the correct form with the helping verbs, and there's one other principal part, and that is the present participle. That is the ing form. Okay, also used with helping verbs, but it's not too important because there are no grammatical issues associated with the present participle. The present participle always ends in ing. As far as I know, there are no exceptions. So, as a matter of grammatical interest or possible area of error, there is not much with the present principal part. So once again, present principal parts, present, past, past participle. Now we use those to form the various tenses. We basically have 6 tenses in English. I'm not going to complicate it here with form. There are different forms of the tenses, but we don't need to go into that right now. We just want to look at the 6 tenses and how they're formed correctly. Okay, we have the present tense, which is simply the present principal part. Okay, we have the past, which is simply the past principal part. Then we have the future, which uses a helping verb, shall or will, plus the present principal part. So, I will help. Okay, help is the present principal part of the verb to help. We have then a series, or actually 3 tenses, which we call perfect. Perfect is not a judgment of quality in any sense. The perfect tenses have no advantage in quality over the simple, what we call the simple tenses, which are the present, the past, and the future. But you notice there is a correlation. The present, we have a present tense, and we have a present perfect. We have a past tense and a past perfect. We have a future tense, and we have a future perfect. So forget the fact that it's called perfect. It has to do with it coming from the Latin, and you don't need to worry about that. But let's look at how they're formed and how these perfect tenses are used. First of all, there's the present perfect. that uses, depending on the subject, either the verb has or have. So the present tense of the verb to have plus the past participle form. So here's where the toddler has to learn. It's I have, and not rided, which is the past, but ridden, which is the past participle. I have ridden. Okay? I have not drinked, actually not drank either. I have drunk. Yes, I have drunk. Not I am drunk, but I have drunk. So the past perfect is had plus the past participle. The future perfect is will have plus the past participle. Will have plus the past participle. I will have achieved my goal next year. Achieved is the past participle. I will have ridden my bike for 2 hours. So how are these used now? Okay, present, past, and future, I think you know how they're used. Present perfect, though. What does that mean? I have ridden my bike every day for the past 2 weeks. Okay? What that means is it refers to a continuous action that goes right up to and possibly including the present. Okay? I have ridden and I continue to ride. Okay? My bicycle. Okay? Now, the past perfect always we have to be referring in context to two times in the past. Okay? So let's say you attended, I don't mean to be a homer here, but you attended Seneca High School before you came to RCBC. So the two actions both occurred in the past, right? Well, I should start off by saying before I started at RCBC. Okay, both occurred in the past. Okay, you attended Seneca ending last June. You started at RCBC in August. Okay, so both are in the past. I had attended Seneca before I started at RCBC. Okay, so there are two actions in the past. The past perfect is used for the first of those two actions in the past. I know sometimes this can be hard to grasp just listening to me talk about it, so you might want to look at the Little Seagull Handbook and get some examples of how these different tenses change the meaning, and that you really do need to choose the right tense for the time that you're talking about. I will have, the future perfect tense also refers to two times. I will have taken 10 courses in my major before I will graduate. Okay? I will have taken. Okay? And that is will have, the future of will, plus the past participle. Will have taken. Okay, and that's an action in the future that takes place before another action in the future. So we see a certain symmetry here. Okay, we see a symmetry between the simple tenses and the perfect tenses. We see a similarity in the fact that all of the perfect tenses use that past participle. So anytime you have that helping verb, the helping verb is the past participle is never used by itself. Correctly, we hear it used a lot. Incorrectly by itself, but it's never used correctly by itself. So have or has plus the past participle. That's the present of have plus past participle, present perfect. Past of have, which is had, plus the past participle, is the past perfect. And the future of have plus the past participle gives us the future perfect. So it does line up with a certain symmetry, even if it doesn't seem to always make complete sense to you. When we talk about looking at a verb and how it changes, through the different tenses and how it changes also according to the person and number of the subject. We call that conjugating a verb. So if we conjugate a regular verb, for example, it's very easy. Present, I like. Past, I liked. We add the D to the present principal part. Future, we use the helping verb will with the present principal part. Okay, all the present simple tenses, very easy. Present perfect is have or has plus the past principal part, which is liked. Past perfect, the past of have, which is had. And the future perfect, the future of have, which is will have. So I hope I haven't confused you more. I hope I've helped you. Again, if not, please try to go to the Purdue OWL, and you will you'll get a fuller explanation there, or you can ask me questions. Okay, so good luck.